What would you do if the man who runs the city suddenly entered your life? This question loomed over Clara's head as she sat on her small balcony, sipping a glass of wine while the city lights flickered in the distance. The bustling streets of Naples were alive with energy, but her life felt stagnant in comparison. By day, she was a dedicated office manager at a local law firm, navigating the mundane tasks of organizing files and managing schedules. By night, she dreamt of adventure, longing for something that would shake her world up and make her feel alive again. Before we continue, one honest request. These stories are made with passion, patience, and heart. If this romance pulls you in, please like the video and subscribe. It helps more than words can say. Now, let's return to the story. As she glanced at her phone, a notification lit up the screen, breaking her thoughts. It was a late-night text from an unknown number. Her heart raced, a mix of excitement and apprehension. Who could it be? The message read simply, "I need to know who he is." A chill ran down her spine. The words were cryptic, yet they felt charged with intensity. Clara quickly dismissed the message, thinking it must be a mistake or some sort of prank. Yet, the seed of curiosity had been planted. The next day at work, her mind kept drifting back to that message. The usual banter with her coworkers felt hollow, as if the colors of her life had faded. She wondered who he was, and why someone would be so desperate to know. She shook her head, trying to focus on her tasks, but the mystery kept pulling her thoughts away. Later that afternoon, Clara decided to treat herself to a coffee at her favorite cafe, a small, quaint spot that offered the best espresso in town. As she entered, the familiar aroma enveloped her, momentarily distracting her from the message. The cafe was cozy, filled with the warm chatter of other patrons and the sound of steaming milk. She ordered her drink and took a seat by the window, allowing herself to relax for a brief moment. As she sipped her coffee, her eyes scanned the room, landing on a tall, striking figure sitting alone at a corner table. His presence was magnetic, and she could feel an inexplicable pull towards him. He had dark hair slicked back, sharp features, and a commanding aura that seemed to silence the entire cafe. Clara's heart raced as she realized this man was Luca, the elusive mafia boss rumored to hold power in Naples. She had heard whispers about him, tales of his ruthless nature and the fear he instilled in those around him. Yet, looking at him now, there was something more beneath that hardened exterior. Their eyes met, and a jolt of electricity coursed through her. It was as if the world around them faded, leaving just the two of them in that moment. She quickly averted her gaze, her cheeks flushing, unsure of what she had just experienced. Suddenly, the cryptic text came rushing back to her mind. Who is he? The question echoed in her thoughts, making her wonder if the unknown text was somehow linked to Luca. She shook her head, trying to brush off the connection as absurd. But the more she tried to dismiss it, the more it intrigued her. At that moment, she couldn't shake the feeling that her life was on the cusp of a significant change, one that might involve the man sitting across the room. The instant their eyes had locked, she felt a mixture of fear and fascination, as if she had crossed an invisible boundary into a world she didn't fully understand. As she left the cafe, Clara couldn't help but glance back at Luca. He was still watching her, an inscrutable expression on his face. The encounter left her breathless, and the unanswered questions of that late-night text weighed heavily on her mind. She felt as though she had been drawn into something much larger than herself, and the thrill of it was intoxicating. Before you skip, just remember, channels like this only survive if you hit subscribe. Otherwise, stories like this one just disappear. Clara returned home, her heart racing. What was it about Luca that captivated her? Was it the danger that surrounded him? Or perhaps it was the allure of the unknown? She tossed and turned that night, unable to shake the thoughts of the mysterious text and the enigmatic man who seemed to embody everything she had been curious about. The following days brought more questions than answers. Clara found herself going back to that cafe, hoping to catch another glimpse of Luca. Each time she visited, she felt a mix of anticipation and dread. Would he notice her? Would they speak? The thought made her pulse quicken. Little did she know, the late-night text was only the beginning of a whirlwind that would draw her deeper into his world, a world filled with intrigue, danger, and a connection that would challenge everything she believed about love and loyalty. The streets of Naples felt more vibrant than ever, and Clara was ready to embrace whatever came next, even if it meant stepping into the unknown. She had no idea that her curiosity would lead her to discover not just the truth behind the text, but the depths of her own heart as well. Clara's daily routine was a well-rehearsed dance, each movement fluid yet predictable. She rose early, the sun just beginning to peek through her window, casting a gentle glow on her modest apartment. The smell of fresh coffee filled the air as she brewed her morning cup, a ritual that signified the start of another day. Yet, as she sipped that first sip, the late-night text lingered in her mind like an uninvited guest, refusing to leave. At work, Clara was known for her diligence and keen intellect. She was the kind of woman who took pride in her ability to juggle tasks with ease. Yet, despite her skills, her thoughts kept drifting back to the mysterious message asking, "Who is he?" The question haunted her, echoing in the corners of her mind, making her feel restless amidst the usual banter with her coworkers. They chatted about weekend plans and office gossip, but Clara felt distanced, as if she were watching life unfold through a foggy window. During her lunch break, she stepped outside, the warm sun kissing her skin. She needed to clear her head. Her feet instinctively led her to the small cafe she adored, a hidden gem known for its rich espresso and cozy atmosphere. As she entered, the comforting smell of roasted coffee beans wrapped around her like a warm blanket. It was a place where she often found solace, a brief escape from the mundane routine of her life. After ordering her usual, a double shot of espresso with a splash of milk, she found a table by the window, a perfect spot to observe the world outside. The cafe buzzed with the soft murmur of conversations, the clinking of cups, and the whirring of the espresso machine. She took a deep breath, allowing the familiar sounds to ground her. Just as she was beginning to relax, her eyes wandered around the room, landing on him. Luca sat at a corner table, his presence commanding the space. He was striking, undeniably so. With dark hair slicked back and a sharp jawline, he exuded an aura of confidence that drew her in. There was a stillness about him, a magnetism that made the bustling cafe seem to fade away. Clara felt a rush of warmth flood her cheeks as their eyes locked. It was an electric moment, one that sent shivers down her spine. Despite the stories she had heard about him, whispers of his ruthlessness and power in the city, Clara couldn't help but feel an inexplicable pull towards him. But why was he here? The question crept back into her mind, accompanied by the nagging text. Who is he? The late-night mystery intertwined with this moment, igniting her curiosity further. It felt surreal, yet she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Luca than met the eye. As she sipped her espresso, she observed him from a distance. He was engrossed in conversation with another man, his demeanor calm and collected. The way he spoke, the gestures he made, all exuded authority. Clara's heart raced, her imagination running wild with thoughts of what it would be like to be near him, to hear his voice up close, to understand the world he inhabited. But then came a moment of clarity. She reminded herself of the risks involved. The Mafia was dangerous, and she had no intention of getting entangled in that world. Yet, as she continued to watch him, she couldn't help but wonder what it would feel like to break free from her predictable life, to embrace the unknown, to bask in the allure of danger that surrounded someone like Luca. Her moment of reverie was interrupted when he suddenly glanced her way again, and for a heartbeat, the world around them vanished. It was as if they were the only two people in the cafe, the air thick with unspoken tension. Clara quickly looked down, pretending to be engrossed in her cup, her heart pounding in her chest. What was happening? Why did he make her feel this way? The coffee shop door swung open, and a gust of wind brought a chill that snapped Clara back to reality. She took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm of emotions swirling within her. The late-night text was becoming less of a nuisance and more of a catalyst for change. Perhaps this was the universe urging her to explore beyond her comfort zone. As Clara prepared to leave, she stole one last glance at Luca. He was still watching her, a slight smirk playing on his lips. It sent a thrill down her spine, igniting a flame of daring within her. Something about him drew her in, a siren call that beckoned her closer to his world. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to like and share it with your friends. Walking out of the cafe, Clara felt a rush of excitement mixed with trepidation. Her heart raced, not just from the encounter, but from the realization that she was on the precipice of something monumental. The late-night text had sparked a flame, and she was ready to see where it led. She had no idea how intertwined her life was about to become with Luca's, but the thrill of the unknown was exhilarating. Back at her apartment later that night, Clara sat on her bed, the shadows of the room dancing in the dim light. She pulled out her phone, staring at the blank screen where that enigmatic message had appeared. Who is he? It echoed once more, now feeling like an invitation. She wondered if she would find the answers she sought, not just about Luca but about herself. The night stretched on, filled with possibilities. Clara felt alive, ready to embrace whatever this new chapter had in store. Little did she know, Luca was not just a man she had encountered. He was the key to unlocking the mysteries of her own heart and the depths of a dangerous world she was about to step into. As Clara navigated the labyrinth of her thoughts, the memory of Luca lingered like an intoxicating perfume, both alluring and dangerous. She had never encountered anyone quite like him, and the more she thought about it, the more she felt drawn into a world she barely understood. The city outside her window buzzed with life, but within her, a storm of emotions brewed. The late-night text had been a catalyst, pushing her to confront her fears and question everything she thought she knew. Days passed, and Clara's routine shifted subtly. She found herself looking forward to her visits to the cafe, hoping to catch a glimpse of Luca. It was a strange obsession, one that both thrilled and terrified her. Each time she entered the cafe, her heart raced at the mere thought of seeing him. Would he be there? Would their eyes lock again? The anticipation was almost unbearable, but she was determined to keep her distance. The danger that accompanied a man like him was not something she could ignore. Then, one fateful afternoon, as she stepped into the cafe, her heart sank and soared simultaneously. There he was, sitting at the very same table, the sunlight casting a halo around him, making him look almost otherworldly. He was talking to a group of men, his deep voice resonating like a distant thunder that sent shivers down her spine. Clara felt exposed, her cheeks warming as she turned to busy herself with her order, trying to act nonchalant. Yet, despite her attempts to remain composed, she could feel his gaze piercing through the crowd. It was an unyielding force that beckoned her closer. As she turned to sneak another glance, their eyes met, and a spark ignited the air between them. She felt an overwhelming urge to walk over, to break the invisible barrier that separated their worlds, but the weight of reality held her back. What would she even say? Did she dare to dive into the depths of his dangerous life? Clara, a voice interrupted her thoughts. It was the barista, handing her an espresso. She took the cup, her hands trembling slightly. She turned to leave but hesitated, glancing back at Luca. He was watching her intently, a slight smirk playing on his lips, as if he could read her thoughts. The moment felt charged, and she found herself wondering what secrets lay behind that enigmatic smile. As she exited the cafe, her heart was racing. That brief connection was like a thread pulling her deeper into a world she was desperate to understand but also terrified to enter. The mystery surrounding Luca was intoxicating, and the more she thought about him, the more she realized how little she knew. But I still didn't know who he really was, she whispered to herself, the weight of her uncertainty heavy on her shoulders. Days turned into weeks, and their paths crossed more often. Each encounter brought a mix of exhilaration and dread. Clara couldn't help but notice the way Luca's presence commanded respect. When he walked into a room, the atmosphere shifted. Conversations hushed, eyes turned towards him. Yet, beneath that exterior of power and authority, she began to catch glimpses of something softer, something human. It was in the way he would occasionally let his guard down, revealing a vulnerability that contradicted the fierce reputation he held. One afternoon, as the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Clara found herself seated at a corner table in the cafe. She could feel the tension in the air as Luca approached her, the subtle whispers from the patrons around them fading into the background. He pulled out the chair opposite her and sat down, a confident smile playing on his lips. "Mind if I join you?" he asked, his voice smooth as silk. She shook her head, trying to suppress the flutter in her stomach. Not at all, she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. The conversation flowed effortlessly, punctuated by laughter and shared stories. Clara felt a connection growing between them, a magnetic force that was hard to resist. With every word exchanged, she was drawn deeper into his world, yet apprehension lingered at the edges of her mind. She still didn't know the extent of his influence, the shadows that loomed behind his charming demeanor. As they spoke, she found herself studying him closely. His dark eyes sparkled with mischief, but there was also a depth that hinted at hidden burdens. Clara noticed the way he shifted slightly when discussing his family, a flicker of pain crossing his features for just a moment before he masked it with a playful comment. It was these fleeting glimpses that intrigued her the most, the realization that there was more to him than the Mafia boss persona he projected. "What do you do when you're not running the city?" Clara asked, her curiosity piqued. She knew she was treading on dangerous ground, but the question slipped out before she could think twice. Luca raised an eyebrow, a playful smirk returning to his lips. "You'd be surprised how much of my time is spent on paperwork and meetings. But I do enjoy the occasional escape," he replied, his tone light yet laced with an underlying seriousness. "Escape?" Clara leaned in, intrigued. He paused, his gaze intense. "Let's just say there are parts of my life that aren't as glamorous as they appear." Before she could respond, he continued, "And what about you? What do you do in a city that never sleeps?" Clara hesitated, the weight of her mundane life feeling trivial in comparison. "I work at a local bookstore, nothing too exciting," she admitted, a hint of embarrassment creeping into her voice. "Books can be quite the adventure," he countered, a glimmer of admiration in his eyes. "They take you places you could never imagine." Before she could reply, the moment was interrupted as Luca's phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at it, and the smile faded just slightly. "I have to take this," he said apologetically, standing up. "But I'd like to continue this conversation. Would you be open to that?" Clara nodded, her heart racing. "Sure, I'd like that." As he walked away to answer the call, Clara felt a rush of exhilaration. The connection they shared was undeniable, yet the shadows of his life loomed large. The thrill of attraction mingled with the fear of the unknown. She was drawn to him, yet every instinct in her warned her to tread carefully. "Before you skip, just remember, channels like this only survive if you hit subscribe. Otherwise, stories like this one just disappear." That evening, as Clara returned home, the late-night text echoed in her mind. Who is he? The question lingered, now more pressing than ever. She needed to know the truth about Luca, the man behind the facade, the secrets he harbored, and the life he led. The thrill of the chase was intoxicating, and Clara felt herself on the precipice of a journey that could change everything. She was ready to dive in, to unravel the mystery, even if it meant risking her heart in the process. The atmosphere in the city seemed to shift as Clara went about her day. There was an undeniable tension lingering in the air, a sense of foreboding that made her more aware of her surroundings. The previous encounters with Luca had ignited something within her, but that spark was now clouded by uncertainty. What did it mean to get involved with someone like him? Could she truly handle the dangers that came with his world, especially now that the stakes were rising? Later that evening, as she walked home from the bookstore, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. The shadows seemed to creep closer, whispering secrets and threats just out of reach. As she turned the corner onto a quieter street, her phone buzzed in her pocket, breaking the silence. It was a message from an unknown number, the stark light of the screen illuminating her face in the dimness of the night. "Clara, you need to be careful," it read, sending a chill down her spine. "He's not who you think he is." Her heart raced as she read the message again, confusion and fear battling within her. Who could possibly know about her relationship with Luca? What did they mean by that ominous warning? She couldn't help but wonder if this was an attempt to protect her or to scare her away from him. Clara's mind began racing with possibilities, each more terrifying than the last. Arriving at her apartment, she immediately locked the door behind her, the sound echoing in the emptiness. She poured herself a glass of water and paced the small kitchen, her thoughts a whirlwind. The warning felt like a blade, sharp and pointed, urging her to reconsider her choices. Yet, despite the fear, there was an undeniable urge to uncover the truth about Luca. She was drawn to him, like a moth to a flame, even if that flame could burn her. That night, sleep eluded Clara. The message haunted her, and as the hours passed, she found herself replaying every moment spent with Luca. She thought about his laughter, the way his eyes sparkled when he spoke, and the hidden depths she had glimpsed. He had shown her a side of himself that was both alluring and dangerous. But what lay beneath the surface? The next day, Clara returned to the cafe, hoping to see him again. Her heart raced every time the door opened, and she felt a rush of adrenaline each time she spotted someone who resembled him. When he finally walked in, his presence filled the room, exuding confidence and authority. Clara's breath caught in her throat. He was captivating, a magnet pulling her in, but the warning echoed in her mind. As he approached her table, she forced herself to maintain her composure. "Hey," he greeted with a smile that made her heart flutter. "I hope I didn't keep you waiting." "Not at all," she replied, trying to sound casual, even as her mind raced. She wanted to ask him so many things, but the words felt trapped in her throat. Instead, they talked about trivial matters, all the while the weight of unspoken questions loomed between them. "Are you still enjoying the bookstore?" he inquired, his gaze steady on her. "Yeah, it's good. I've been thinking about how many stories are waiting to be discovered," Clara said, feeling the urge to share more with him, to peel back the layers of their conversation. She needed to know more about him, especially after the message she had received. Luca leaned in slightly, his interest piqued. "Stories can be powerful, you know. They can change lives." Clara nodded, but the truth was, his words resonated with her on a different level. They both had stories, layers of complexity hidden beneath their facades. The question was whether she was ready to dive into his. "Can I ask you something?" Clara's heart raced as she prepared to breach the topic that had been plaguing her thoughts. "What do you do when you're not running the city?" The moment hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Luca's expression shifted slightly, and he took a deep breath. "That's a loaded question," he replied, his voice low. "But let's just say I have my hands in many different pots." Clara could sense the wall he was building, but she pressed on. "Does it involve danger?" Luca's eyes darkened for a moment, and she could see the flicker of something behind them, a vulnerability, perhaps? "Danger is part of life, Clara. But it's how you handle it that matters." "Are you saying you enjoy it?" she challenged, her voice steady despite the rapid beating of her heart. He regarded her for a moment, a smile playing on his lips. "Maybe I find it exciting. Or maybe I just want to protect what's mine." The weight of his words settled heavily between them. Clara felt a rush of emotions, fear, intrigue, and an undeniable attraction. But underneath it all lay a question that gnawed at her. What did he mean by protecting what's mine? Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted as Luca's phone buzzed again, and his expression changed. "I have to take this," he said, standing up. "I'll be right back." As he walked away, Clara's mind was racing. The tension between them was palpable, and she felt the walls of her reality beginning to close in. She needed to understand what Luca was involved in, but how could she find the answers without pushing him away? If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to like and share it with your friends. As she sat in the cafe, alone with her thoughts, Clara knew she had to make a choice. Would she continue to pursue this dangerous attraction, or would she heed the warning from the unknown number? The stakes were rising, and she found herself standing at a crossroads, ready to dive into a world that could change everything. As Clara sat in the cafe, her thoughts a whirlwind of emotions, she couldn't shake the feeling that their encounter was just the beginning of something monumental. The atmosphere buzzed with the chatter of patrons, but all she could focus on was Luca. The way he commanded the room, the confidence that seemed to radiate from him, was intoxicating yet terrifying. She felt the thrill of the unknown tugging at her, urging her to lean into this connection, despite the dangers it entailed. Just then, Luca returned, his phone still in hand, the light from the screen casting a glow on his chiseled features. His expression was serious, a shadow crossing his face as he typed a quick response. Clara felt a knot tighten in her stomach. She wanted to reach out, to pull him closer, but something held her back. What secrets lay behind those deep brown eyes? What world was he truly a part of? "Sorry about that," he said, slipping his phone back into his pocket. There was an intensity in his voice that made her heart race. "Business calls, you know how it is." "Yes, I can only imagine," she replied, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "So, what's it really like for you? Being you?" He leaned back, studying her with a look that sent shivers down her spine. "It's complicated. There are things I can't share. But let's just say, it's not all glamour and excitement." Clara met his gaze, feeling a spark of connection, a shared understanding that transcended the surface-level conversation. "I get that. Everyone has their burdens. I'm just trying to navigate my own life, one day at a time. Sometimes, it's not enough to just navigate. Sometimes you have to take risks," Luca said, his voice low and intense. "Especially when it comes to who you let into your life." Those words struck a chord deep within Clara. The implications of what he was saying hung between them, heavy and electric. Did he see her as someone worth the risk? Or was he warning her away from a world she knew nothing about? The conversation shifted as they explored their favorite books and movies, the tension giving way to laughter. Clara found herself captivated by his stories, the way he spoke with passion about things that mattered to him. But in the back of her mind, the reality of who he was loomed, a specter waiting to reclaim its throne. "Do you ever think about your future?" Clara asked, her voice turning serious again. "Every day," Luca replied, the weight of his answer palpable. "It's hard to plan when everything around you is unpredictable." He paused, his expression hardening slightly. "But there are some things I know I need to protect." "What do you mean?" He leaned closer, and Clara could feel the warmth radiating from him, the intoxicating scent of his cologne enveloping her. "If you're asking about my world, it's dangerous. I'm not just a businessman, I'm part of something much bigger. And that comes with risks, risks for everyone I care about." The gravity of his words sent a chill down her spine. "So, you care about me?" she pressed, her heart pounding in anticipation. He studied her for a moment, an inscrutable expression crossing his face. "I care about the people who matter to me, Clara. And right now, you've become part of that circle." The admission hung in the air, electric and charged. Clara felt a rush of emotions, excitement, fear, and an overwhelming desire to understand him. "But what does that mean? What does it mean to be part of your world?" Luca opened his mouth to respond when a loud crash echoed from outside the cafe, causing both of them to jump. The moment was shattered, the tension replaced by alarm. Clara's heart raced as she glanced toward the window, seeing a group of men arguing loudly on the street, one of them gesturing aggressively. "What's happening?" she asked, her voice tinged with anxiety. Luca's demeanor shifted in an instant. He stood up, his protective instincts kicking in. "Stay here," he commanded, his voice firm. "I need to check this out." "Wait." Clara called after him, but he was already moving, his presence a whirlwind of energy as he stepped outside. She felt a mix of fear and concern, watching as Luca approached the scene with the confidence of a man who knew his territory. The men were shouting, and Clara's breath hitched as she realized how quickly the situation could escalate. Luca's back was to her, but she could see the tension in his shoulders, the way he held himself, ready for anything. Clara's instincts kicked in. She couldn't just sit back and watch. She stood, her heart pounding, and moved toward the door. The cafe was filled with murmurs of concern, but she pushed through the crowd, her eyes locked on Luca. "Luca," she called out, her voice cutting through the chaos. He turned slightly, his sharp gaze meeting hers, and for a moment, time stood still. She could see the danger in his eyes, the urge to protect her battling with the reality of the situation. "Get back," he shouted, his voice low but commanding. But Clara was resolute. She wouldn't be a bystander in her own life. "I'm not leaving you," she yelled back, stepping closer to him as the argument outside began to escalate. In that moment, she realized something profound. Her connection with Luca was more than just a spark of attraction. It was a bond that defied the chaos around them. She felt an urge to stand by him, to confront whatever danger lurked ahead together. Just as she reached his side, the situation reached a boiling point, one man stepping forward, fists clenched. Before she could react, Luca stepped in front of her, his body a shield against the world outside. "You don't want to do this," he warned, his voice steady and calm amidst the storm of chaos. Clara's heart raced. She had chosen to step into Luca's world, and now, facing the unknown, she realized just how deep their connection ran. She could feel the tension hanging in the air, the weight of their choices pressing down on them. What would happen next? Would they emerge from this moment stronger, or would it tear them apart? If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to like and share it with your friends. As the seconds ticked by, the reality of what was unfolding became clear. They were both in over their heads, but together, perhaps they could navigate the storm. With a mix of fear and determination, Clara grasped Luca's arm, ready to face whatever lay ahead, knowing that this moment would change her destiny forever. Clara stood at the threshold of uncertainty, her heart racing as she and Luca navigated the aftermath of the chaos they had just faced. The air was thick with tension, but it was different this time, charged with an intensity that spoke of newfound understanding and commitment. The moment they had shared outside the cafe, where she had chosen to stand beside him rather than retreat into the safety of the crowd, had shifted everything between them. As they walked back to his car, Clara could feel the heat radiating from Luca's body, a comforting warmth that contrasted with the storm that had just passed. "I didn't expect you to be so brave," he said, his voice low, almost a whisper. "I didn't plan on being brave," she replied, stealing a glance at him. "I just couldn't stand by and watch you face that alone." Luca's eyes softened, a flicker of admiration shining through the usual steely determination. "You have no idea how much that means to me," he said, his tone earnest. "Most people wouldn't understand what it's like to be in my world." "You're playing with fire, Clara." "I know," she admitted, her voice steady despite the flutter of nerves in her stomach. "But I'd rather face the fire than live in fear. I want to be part of this with you, whatever it means." His brow furrowed slightly, as if he was trying to gauge the depth of her resolve. "There are risks, Clara. Real risks. It's not just about us, this affects everyone around us." "I understand," she replied, her heart pounding in her chest. "But I don't want to run away. I want to stand by you. I want to understand your world, even if it's dangerous." Luca paused, his hands resting on the steering wheel as he stared straight ahead. "You might regret saying that," he murmured. "Maybe I will," she said, her chin lifted defiantly. "But I'd rather regret something I did than something I didn't do." The silence between them was thick with unspoken words, and Clara could feel the weight of their shared moment pressing down on them. Luca turned to her, his expression shifting from contemplation to determination. "If you're truly in this, then you need to know everything. My world isn't just dangerous, it's ruthless. People don't just get hurt, they disappear." Her breath caught in her throat at the gravity of his words. "Then we'll face it together," she stated with conviction, her voice unwavering. He regarded her for a long moment, as if searching for hesitation in her eyes but finding none. "You're unlike anyone I've ever met," he finally said, a hint of a smile breaking through his serious demeanor. "And that terrifies me." "What's so terrifying about me?" Clara asked, a teasing smile playing on her lips despite the tension in the car. "Your courage," he replied softly, "and your ability to see through the darkness." As they drove through the dimly lit streets of the city, Clara felt the atmosphere shift. The adrenaline from the confrontation was fading, replaced by a bond that felt both exhilarating and precarious. She was stepping into a realm filled with shadows and whispers, where loyalties were tested and danger lurked around every corner. Luca parked in front of his penthouse, the building towering above them, a symbol of power and prestige. As they exited the car, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that this was a pivotal moment in their lives. She followed Luca up to his apartment, her heart pounding in anticipation of what lay ahead. Once inside, the atmosphere shifted again. The sleek, modern decor of the penthouse felt intimidating yet inviting, a reflection of Luca himself. He poured 2 glasses of whiskey, the amber liquid glinting in the light, and handed one to her. "To new beginnings," he said, raising his glass. "To new beginnings," she echoed, clinking her glass against his. They both took a sip, the warmth of the whiskey spreading through her, easing the lingering tension in her body. Luca leaned against the counter, his posture relaxed but his eyes intense. "You need to understand the stakes, Clara. My life is filled with choices that could endanger you. I need to know you're prepared for that." "I'm not afraid of you," she said, her voice steady. "I'm afraid of losing you." His gaze softened, and for a brief moment, the world outside faded away. "Then you need to trust me," he replied, stepping closer. "I will do everything in my power to protect you." Clara's heart swelled at his words, the fierce protectiveness within him igniting something deep inside her. "I trust you, Luca," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering against her skin. The intimate gesture sent a shiver down her spine, and she felt the pull between them intensify. "You don't know what you're getting into," he warned, his voice low and husky. "Maybe I don't," Clara admitted, her eyes locked on his. "But I want to find out. I want to be with you." In that moment, the air between them crackled with anticipation, and Clara felt as if they stood on the precipice of something monumental. It was a beautiful risk, a leap into the unknown that could either shatter them or bind them forever. Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and make sure to subscribe for more exciting stories. As they stood there, the city lights twinkling outside like stars, Clara knew that whatever lay ahead, she was ready to face it with Luca by her side. The danger, the uncertainty, and the promise of love intertwined in a way that felt both exhilarating and terrifying, a tapestry of life woven with threads of passion and peril. Together, they would navigate the shadows, forging their path through the darkness, hand in hand. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the city, Clara found herself reflecting on every moment that had led her to this point. The memories flooded her mind like a gentle tide, each one more vivid than the last. She remembered the first time she had crossed paths with Luca, the imposing figure who had unknowingly turned her life upside down. It was a whirlwind of emotions, a journey that intertwined their destinies in ways she had never anticipated. Who is he? It was a question that echoed in her mind, the words lingering like a sweet melody. She had asked herself that countless times since the late-night text had changed everything. It was not just about Luca's title as a mafia boss, it was about the man behind the facade, the complexities hidden within his cold exterior. The revelation of his world had opened her eyes to dangers she had never imagined, yet the allure of being part of it had ignited a fire within her. Every encounter with him had peeled back layers, revealing a vulnerability that few could perceive. Clara remembered the way he looked at her, his gaze piercing and intense, as if he could see into her soul. It was in those moments that she felt the walls he had built around himself begin to crumble, and she realized that beneath the surface, he was just as human as she was. The bond they shared grew stronger with each passing day, stitched together by whispered confessions and stolen glances. But the shadows of his past loomed large, casting a pall over their relationship. Clara recalled the night they had confronted danger together, her heart racing as she stood by his side, refusing to be a mere spectator in his world. The thrill of that moment had awakened something deep within her, a sense of empowerment that she had never known. In that instant, she became more than just a woman caught in the web of the mafia, she was a partner, a fierce ally willing to face whatever came their way. The journey had not been without its challenges. Clara remembered the moments of doubt that crept in, the nights filled with uncertainty and fear. She had questioned whether she was truly ready to embrace this life, to stand beside a man whose very existence was entwined with danger. Yet, with every challenge, their connection deepened. She began to understand Luca on a level that transcended the superficial. She saw the weight he carried, the burdens that shaped him into the man he had become. Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and make sure to subscribe for more exciting stories. She recalled the narrator's voice echoing in her mind, a reminder of the world beyond her own. It was a world where stories were shared, connections were made, and the power of storytelling brought people together. Inspired by this thought, Clara decided to turn her reflection into a narrative of her own, a story of love, resilience, and the complexities of life intertwined with the Mafia. As she looked out at the city, the lights twinkling like stars in the night sky, she felt a sense of hope. The future was uncertain, but she was ready to face it alongside Luca. They had forged a bond that surpassed the boundaries of their respective worlds, a connection that promised to withstand the trials that lay ahead. The challenges they faced were daunting, but they were no longer alone. Together, they would navigate the twists and turns of life, hand in hand, ready to embrace whatever came their way. In the quiet moments, when the world slowed down, Clara could feel the echoes of their journey resonating within her. She was no longer just Clara, the hard-working woman living a mundane life. She was Clara, the partner of a mafia boss, a woman who had chosen courage over fear, love over uncertainty. The realization brought a smile to her lips, a reflection of the strength she had discovered within herself. As the night wrapped around her like a comforting blanket, Clara made a silent vow, to embrace every moment, to cherish the love they had built, and to stand by Luca as they ventured into the unknown together. The adventure was just beginning, and she was ready to write the next chapter of their story, one filled with passion, danger, and an unbreakable bond. The world beyond their little bubble was vast and unpredictable, but Clara felt an exhilarating thrill as she imagined what lay ahead. She knew that every twist and turn would only serve to deepen their connection, to strengthen the love that had blossomed amidst chaos. They were two souls entwined in a dance of fate, and she would not trade that for anything. With a heart full of hope and determination, Clara took a deep breath, ready to embrace the journey that awaited her. She was not just a spectator in this story, she was a co-creator, writing her own narrative alongside Luca, the man who had changed her life in ways she could never have foreseen. Together, they would face the world, their love a beacon of light in the darkest of times, a promise of forever etched in their hearts.